Hello, everyone, and welcome to Health and Happiness at Work. This podcast is for busy working adults trying to figure out how to better take care of themselves and others. My name is Katie, and I will be your host. We are here today because adulting is hard and because busy working adults spend more time at work than anywhere else. We're going to have real conversations about real life and, most importantly, swing into action on the biggest opportunities. We're going to talk about ways to layer health, fitness, and wellness directly into your workday so that you feel fantastic. I cannot wait to dive deeper into each of these topics related to health and happiness. You are not alone. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 2. I am calling this Optimize Engagement with Life and Work. And that was an intentional choice. I didn't want to state work first, so I am placing life first and work second, and you'll see here why in just a moment. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining me again. Either you are a returning listener or a new one, but regardless, I'm happy to have you here. We are going to lead today by talking about why engagement matters. Engagement is a hot topic. It has been for some time. I think it's important that we get aligned on the definition of the word engagement, and then I will take you on a journey about why this matters, either at home in your own personal life or why it matters professionally and why it especially matters for decision makers and workplaces all over the globe. So, to define the word engagement really speaks to being an active participant in something. To be engaged means that you demonstrate enthusiasm or excitement. And some would say that engagement speaks to a level of commitment or connection. So I'd like to review these definitions one more time, and maybe you close your eyes and visualize this through the lens or perspective of applying it to your personal life and to your professional life. So being engaged speaks to being an active participant in something, to being immersed in something. It demonstrates enthusiasm or excitement. And some would say that it demonstrates a level of commitment or connection. So I see all of these as being really desirable qualities, right? And in a past episode, we also spoke about engagement when we were talking about flow. And in psychology, the state of flow speaks to being fully immersed in the activity, task, or hobby at hand. And there are a ton of amazing characteristics or benefits of being in flow. So if you missed that episode, you can take a listen to find your flow in Season 1. So anyways, we're looking at engagement in terms of being an active participant in life, in work, and what are the benefits of this? I also think it's important to mention one other model that really ties nicely to this definition of engagement, and it speaks to the work of Dr. Martin Seligman. He is known as the father of positive psychology. I have spoken about his work before. He has a couple of theories specific to happiness and well-being. And specifically today, I want to review the acronym PERMA, which I've spoken about previously. And he names or identifies 5 pillars associated with well-being, or what he also calls human flourishing. PERMA stands for positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. So again, because he speaks to engagement and because it is a driver of well-being, this is another way we are applying the idea or definition of engagement today. In business, we hear the word engagement all the time. I would venture to say it is the buzzword of the last 5 years. And understandably so, right? Workplaces, hiring managers, leaders, everyone wants engaged employees. And I think that goal or objective has only become more challenging in the past 2 years due to the changes in the workday and work life. With people working in a hybrid situation, with individuals working remotely exclusively, it's just really hard to nurture that kind of connection and participation that I think employers are really after. It's not impossible, it's just difficult. It was difficult already, and I think it will continue to be difficult. Now, we can do difficult things, so we will get through this. And I think it's important to mention that I'm hearing a theme. I'm just going to kind of put this in my own words because I step into a number of different workplaces, industries, workdays. And one of the things that I'm hearing is that in this era, people do feel in some ways more connected, but they feel more connected in terms of technology, in terms of life being on demand or immediate, or I need you now. People are pinging you on your phone or app or work streams. And so, therefore, communication might be different, better, heightened, but people are feeling less connected in terms of their social and emotional well being. So, this is the curious thing about social media, right? People feel connected yet disconnected. They feel in the know, but potentially judged by someone. It's just a really interesting place to hang out sometimes. So I just think it's really important that we think through how to support people in feeling connected. And whatever we're doing with health and well-being can absolutely achieve that. It's clear to me that better or greater engagement is a powerful goal. Powerful goal, obviously, for employers, for people, for groups. But it's been my experience that everyone is still struggling to maximize it. Hence why we are here today. So when I hear employers in particular expressing concerns about lack of engagement, I think we need to remember that there are many, if not infinite reasons why this might be the case. I like to say that people are complicated, and I don't mean that as a negative thing. It just is. There's beauty in all of us being different as well, but it just makes it really difficult to problem solve things sometimes. And I think, unfortunately, people assume that a solution looks a certain way and that it's only one way. And I think we can fall into some ways of thinking that aren't all inclusive. And I think some people aren't just disengaged with work. They may be slightly bored or discouraged or disengaged with life in general. And again, not for only one reason, but for potentially many reasons. So today I'd really like to take a deeper dive on why people may or may not be engaged with their own life or work, and what can we do to positively impact this. So as you're listening, I'll say this, I think, many times. I tend to repeat myself, so I'm working on that. I will be encouraging you to consistently listen to this idea or my insights just because I've been doing this for a number of years and I'm passionate about it. I'll encourage you to think about this and apply it to your own experience personally, what can be learned or applied. But then again, anytime you're working with a group, we all engage with different groups because of our hobbies or socially. We all engage with groups in the workplace and workday, our teams. And you're potentially a decision maker who is having these conversations and trying to figure out what can we do better or different to be a place where people love to work, to be a place where people feel included and supported and set up for success. And so with that, I really want to dive next into why someone might be disengaged. So whether you are self-assessing or whether you are, again, considering the needs of a team, I already mentioned there are a variety of reasons why people feel stuck, unmotivated, or the phrase I think that makes the most sense is checked out. Sometimes people are just checked out, right? You can look across a meeting or even a movie, and sometimes people are checked out. And it's like, why are they checked out? Maybe they're somewhere else with their thoughts. Maybe there's something else going on. Any of this affects engagement or how someone might be an active participant in their own life or in their workplace. So what I'll call this is a list of common barriers. And these are common barriers that I have observed through consulting and coaching and working hands-on with people. and being someone who's fascinated and curious by people and why they do and don't do things. And then some of what I have learned and will share with you here shortly is a result of training and some common themes that we do see in terms of human behavior. I have quite a long list to share with you, but I think this will open up some discovery and some ways of thinking of situations and scenarios that will be supportive and helpful. The first few that I'm going to speak to today could probably be lumped together. So it's difficult for someone to be incredibly active or engaged if they're feeling at capacity. I really like the word capacity. And another word for this would be someone feeling maybe overwhelmed or out of bandwidth. So when someone is at capacity, they feel unable to take on anything additional. Obviously, that's going to impact the workday. Even if there are fun things going on, optional trainings going on, fitness classes going on, that's the type of thing I provide. If someone's at capacity, they're going to have a very difficult time stepping away. Additionally, I hear people share quite often that they have low energy or low time. I talk about time and energy a lot. I call these your precious resources. And so if you are low on energy or if you are navigating time scarcity, those are two major barriers. So the question becomes, how do we help you to feel more energized? And how do we help you to free up time in your day so that therefore you can be more engaged with life and work? Other reasons why people may disengage can be related to confusion or lack of clarity, lack of communication, not aware of what's going on, what the opportunities are. I say this all the time, and so forgive me if I've said it before, but this really resonates for me as a small business owner and as a health coach. I heard once in a marketing workshop, I'm sure, that a confused shopper doesn't buy. So the second the brain gets overwhelmed and is trying to make a decision, it kind of shuts down. And the same will happen with shopping. I have this experience if I'm buying something impulsively online and I'm clicking, and then it gets to be difficult and I'm like, I'm out. Abandon. So a confused shopper doesn't buy, but then I go on and I put my spin on it to say a confused employee doesn't engage. So if people aren't sure why something's happening, where it's happening, what's happening, and this can apply to life too. If you don't know what the opportunities are for getting dialed in to a class or a community or a group or an offering or a concert, if you don't know, you can't show up. Or if you know about it, but it doesn't make sense and your brain goes, I don't get it, then you'll probably opt out. And so I think in life, we're trying to get people to opt in, not opt out. So the way we get people to opt in or get excited about what we're doing is to minimize confusion, make things crystal clear. I joke that my biggest trigger is when things are clear as mud. If something's clear as mud, I get frustrated and it makes it hard to get to yes. So confusion or lack of clarity can really be a barrier for folks. Also on this list of barriers is perfectionism. Many people wrestle with this, wrestle with the idea or the feeling or the belief that life or work needs to be a certain way to be quote unquote good enough. So that standard can actually be debilitating and keep someone completely hung up and stuck. And I speak from experience. So me actually putting my voice into this microphone and out into a global situation where people can experience it and have opinions of it shows that I'm making progress in this barrier of perfectionism, but it's common. People will avoid situations if there's concern about being able to perform to a certain standard. And this is just one type of challenge that people navigate, right? There are a whole host of cognitive distortions, which not my area of expertise. I'm not a mental health expert, but I know enough to know that there are patterns of thinking that can stop people in their tracks and set up patterns of negative thinking and patterns where people talk themselves out of doing things. And so someone might disengage if they're really wrestling with cognitive distortions and their way of thinking and processing information. And again, they might just avoid a situation altogether. When it comes to self-talk, I just want to elaborate on one other possible scenario. And I'm going to use an example that's really common in my line of work. So part of what I do, one of many things that I do, is teach group fitness classes. I absolutely love it. It's totally my calling. And so these group fitness classes obviously happen out in the community, but they also happen in the workplace. And what I will hear from people in the workplace and in the workday is that they are uncomfortable and or unwilling to exercise in front of a colleague, a team member, someone who reports to them. And that breaks my heart because for someone to say that, I mean, I appreciate them being honest and upfront and sharing their experience. Obviously, they're entitled to their experience and it is what it is. But I wish it was different for that person because what I'm hearing is that they are uncomfortable. And I anticipate that this is because self-talk or the thought stream is, oh, I wonder what they think of me. Oh, I wonder if they're looking at me. Oh, I wonder what I look like in my spandex. And I wish it was different. I wish that wasn't their experience. And I wish that people could see some of the beautiful things or benefits that happen from showing up in a group scenario like that. And I don't think there is that level of judgment going on, but it's a major concern. And so it becomes a major barrier. And I anticipate this is not just something that happens in the workplace. I hear people say all the time, I am not a gym rat. I'm not a gym fan. I don't feel comfortable going there. I don't know how to use the equipment. I'm wondering what people think. And, I kind of make this joke that sometimes people at the gym, they're just staring at themselves. I think I've made this joke before, but sometimes people are so immersed in what they're doing, they're not even looking at you and they're certainly not then placing judgment. But there is this concern or fear of judgment in terms of putting oneself out there that can keep someone avoiding a situation or avoiding an activity. And I think it's important that we remember that. I already touched on this briefly, but I'll touch on it again. Sometimes boredom is the reason why someone is disengaged. I have this experience from time to time where something just doesn't keep my attention. I like the word captivating. If something's not captivating and drawing me in and pulling me in, my brain goes somewhere else. So you might ask the question, is this potentially boring? And why is it boring? That can be another potential barrier. Oh, I'm excited to talk about this next potential barrier. This really starts to speak to opinions and personalities and differences, which again is a great thing. We want a diverse world, populations, and teams. But what can be tricky is that oftentimes people have very different opinions on what is fun or what is the right thing to do. And so people don't always agree, right? So there might be something planned in life or at work that is thought to be fun, but maybe a handful of people look at it and they think, that is so unfun, right? So for me, I think dancing is super fun. And I want to host all the dance parties all the time. And to me, that's fun. And to some other people, that will be fun or funny. And it serves that purpose and it gets people engaging with me, right? But for other people, it's a hell no, that is not my idea of fun. That sounds unfun. I have two left feet, all the reasons why they don't want to do it. And that's okay. So my point is, not every opportunity is going to speak to every person. So not everyone will engage with the same type of content or activity. Personal preferences are potentially a barrier. And I say this because there might be something happening at 9 p.m. and not a lot of people are choosing to do it. Well, maybe those people are early birds, morning people. 9 p.m. is not convenient, does not speak to their personality. So I find that people have very strong personal preferences for their lives. And so again, whatever the activity or offering is in life or at work, it's not going to speak to all people 100% of the time. I feel like the list of barriers goes on and on, but I tell you what, I feel very strongly that this is valuable to think about. And I anticipate by the end of the session, there might be a couple that jump out as areas of opportunity. So I am just going to keep trucking along. Next, as a potential barrier or reason for being checked out, could be what someone is experiencing in terms of making a life change. So when someone's trying to work on something, like maybe they're trying to eat healthier, be more positive, maybe they're interested in quitting smoking, maybe they're working to lose weight. So when someone is working on a life change, there are a number of different stages that person goes through, and it's not always predictable or linear. And we call these the stages of change. So sometimes people are in a stage of thinking, or what's called contemplation. Sometimes people aren't thinking at all, so that's pre-contemplation. But then they start thinking, it's contemplation. Then they start preparing, so they're taking some steps, getting organized, making a plan. Then they start taking action, start doing the healthy behaviors. But then sometimes there's setbacks, right? And people fall off the wagon, quote unquote, or take steps backwards. And then sometimes people make a change and it sticks, right? So at any point in time, you or people you're with, they're going through something and you don't know what that something is and you don't know where they are in the stages or the process. So sometimes people are hung up thinking, and sometimes people are thinking and they're not doing the steps to get to their goal, and so they might even be frustrated. People are at different stages at different times for different reasons, and because of that, they may not participate in something, right? It's just not where they are in that process of change or in that stage of life. And so that's a good segue to the next potential barrier, which is navigating a major life event. I went to a really powerful meeting last week with a local group that I'm a part of. We are all committed to creating healthier businesses and workplaces. And we were talking about what needs to happen, what can happen to support people through a major life event. And so what do we mean by that? There are, tragic or crisis situations where someone is diagnosed or dies of a disease, or there's an accident, someone in the workplace loses their life, there's grief, death of a loved one, death of an employee, divorce, a diagnosis of any kind, really, yourself or others. There are other life events that maybe are more positive, right? Like having your first baby or getting married, but they are considered major life events that have stress points or demand associated with them. Obviously, any type of change in the workplace, I watch a lot of organizations go through massive mergers and acquisitions and changes. So maybe somebody is navigating uncertainty. Life events can look a lot of different ways. But if someone is navigating a major life event, or you are navigating a major life event, people may not know. It may be more of a private experience. And so it's causing that person to take a few steps back. They're not able to engage or participate in everything they might like. And so we don't always know what someone is navigating. And I think we need to be generous in our assumptions. That's a key takeaway from our friend Brene Brown, to be generous in assumptions, that people are really trying to do their best, but we are not always privy to the information around what they're truly navigating. My next barrier is a common one. I meet people almost on a daily basis who say, I just can't get motivated. And I've spoken at length about motivation, so I'm not going to take a super long trip down this path, but motivation really speaks to desire. It speaks to passion. So if this is a barrier, if someone is feeling unmotivated, there is a loss of passion, there's a loss of desire. So we really need to seek to understand, what is that person passionate about? Or ask yourself, what am I passionate about? What lights a fire in my belly? What gets me excited to hop out of bed in the morning? It's an important question to sit with, but lack of motivation can absolutely be a huge barrier, as is lack of meaning. Another word for that is purpose. And so when there is a clear meaning and purpose, and when it speaks to the individual, then that's when the magic happens. And so people will understandably be motivated by different causes or sense of purpose that it provides in life. Another barrier that I navigate on a daily basis is distractions. Squirrel moments, right? Like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And the day unfolds differently than you think it's going to unfold because your attention gets hijacked by a shiny object. I was talking to a colleague the other day and she said, I'm creating a parking lot for shiny objects. And I thought, ooh, that's really good. And so I was picturing like one of those massive Post-it notes and making that a parking lot, like writing parking lot on the top. And anytime I have a shiny object idea, putting it on there. And I'm like, that might help me. So side note, see how easily I get distracted? I'm very visual. I was like seeing it in the moment. But anyways, distractions hijack our attention. Whatever it is we might say we want to do can unfold differently because something else has popped into our minds. So someone might not be engaging because they are distracted by something else. Some of us navigate this on a daily basis. And I thought this might be a good opportunity to speak about neurodiversity. You know, everyone processes information a little differently, experiences life a little differently, articulates or communicates differently. And I'm sure I could think of many different ways to talk about this, but what really came up for me as I was preparing for today mentally is this idea that some people are just chronically distracted, and it is what it is. So, fun fact, we just had a major distraction. We had a emergency vehicle go by and our heads swung out the window and we stopped recording. So I like to share those behind the scenes moments. I hope that individual is okay. Let's think of them in this moment. And yeah, so distractions happen and people get pulled away from maybe what they could do or said they would do simply because of distraction. And some people's brains are just wired that way. And it's a very difficult thing to navigate and manage, and they're doing the best they can. So we might offer additional reminders, additional encouragement. Some people have a very difficult time being still, right? So those individuals might avoid certain opportunities or situations because it's really difficult to be still. Some people are more kinesthetic. They need something more embodied, right? That's me as a dancer. I have a very hard time just sitting and watching something. I want to be up, doing, moving, and experiencing. And so I think that also could be a barrier for other people, right? They need to experience life in a way that speaks and resonates to them, and sitting in a board meeting might not check that box. So how do we kind of diversify some of the opportunities as well? Another barrier that I see all the time in health coaching and in business actually is the tendency to hesitate. And ironically, I was hesitating as I was speaking. I was trying to find my words. It's the tendency to hesitate. So why do people hesitate? Well, I think this could be because of the perfectionism challenge already noted. People might hesitate because they lack skills or resources or clarity. So this might be a review of some of the other barriers we've already discussed. But where I really wanted to head with this one was the idea that a lack of confidence can get in the way of doing and experiencing new things. And so that might really create a major obstacle or hurdle for someone, right? For example, in the workplace, if you're asking people to step forward and take a leadership role and, why aren't people volunteering to do this? Why are they not taking advantage of this opportunity? Well, the hesitation might be around that they don't have a lot of confidence. They haven't really been built up in their current role. They don't feel comfortable or capable in their public speaking or managing people or what have you. So that can be a major barrier, this lack of confidence. And actually, this is kind of coming up as a theme with some of my clients as well. What can we do to strengthen confidence? And I think that's a really good thing to sit with and say, how do we empower people with greater confidence so that they are willing to stretch themselves and put themselves out there and, again, feel empowered to maybe make decisions or step into new opportunities? Sometimes we're asking people to do things in life, and maybe the goal or the objective is problematic. I think people will take a few steps back or avoid or disengage if the goal at hand is unrealistic, unreasonable, they don't have the skills, they don't have the leadership. And so sometimes there's a problem with the stated objective. So it's not a character flaw of the individual, there's a problem with the goal or there's a problem with the plan or the strategy. And I think in business and in life, we sometimes have to look at the goal and say, hey, is this really set up for success or can something be different to set the stage for success? In thinking through additional challenges in our culture, I think it's really important that we do a quick review of stress. I have spoken about stress in past episodes and the upside of stress, honestly, and some of the reasons why demand or stress can be healthy. But what I want to speak to today is this idea of chronic stress, persistent stress, distress, and or anxiety. There are individuals, myself included, who for a number of years had such high levels of stress and anxiety that I didn't know life could be different. There are some individuals who the anxiety is so persistent and so consistent and has been inherent in their lives for a number of years. That is normal for them, right? So some people don't know that life could feel different. I share this because there might be an opportunity out there, and I think about the types of programs that I run and manage and offer. And we are providing things like meditation and yoga classes and fitness classes and opportunities to learn and develop new skills. And someone might actually avoid the class or program because they're so stuck by their persistent stress and anxiety that they don't know that it could feel otherwise. And so until we can get them into that class or into that experience, they don't know what anything else feels like. And so therefore, they don't know what they're missing out on. So where I'm headed with this is that experiential opportunities, assuming you can get people to experience new ways of doing things, new, again, classes or skills or approaches, if you can get them to experience it and they have a different experience than they've had in the past, that can be a powerful way to drive engagement. But I think being in a chronic stress response can be a barrier that keeps people frozen or running from opportunities. We're kind of winding down on this list of potential barriers, and where I kind of want to land today with wrapping this up is this idea that some people are potentially disconnected from activities that truly spark joy. Some of us have hobbies that are our favorite ways to spend leisure time, but some people don't have that. And maybe you had it in the past. Maybe you did something when you were 5 or 10 years old and it brought you so much joy and it was your favorite hobby or sport or art or craft or whatever it was that you did. It was your favorite, but you haven't done it for decades. So there can be a disconnection from joyful activities, and I think people potentially feel stuck in the mundane of day-to-day life and demands. So like attracts like, if you're kind of in a funk and you're in the weeds on mundane tasks and you haven't had that experience of joyful or fun or interesting or engaging tasks, then again, you don't know what you're missing out on. there might be people who are searching for that. They haven't found their thing. For some people, it's running. Running will never be my thing. But I'm happy for people who it is their thing. So, how do we help people or ourselves to find that passion project, to find that hobby, to find that mission, to find that thing that lights their soul on fire and brings them joy and puts them into that state of flow and contentment where they have skills and there's a little bit of challenge and they're able to rise to the challenge? How do we help people to connect with that? So I'm calling this next section, Now What? Like, thanks, Katie. You've listed about 24 barriers. And I didn't mean to be so exhaustive, but I really wanted to hit home that we don't always know why someone is checking out and why they can't participate in life or work or whatever it is that we're hosting and we want them there. What is it? And it's not one thing. I share all of this to say it's not one thing. Now, that said, this entire list of barriers also reveals a massive list of opportunities, right? So each of these challenges can be flipped on its head, and we can say, oh, we can help people with that. We can help people to have more time in their day. We can help people to have better energy. We can help people to feel more connected to a sense of passion or purpose. We can build people's skills. We can have more ways to have fun. It doesn't only have to be one way. So for all of these potential challenges, we have just as many equal opportunities to do something differently than we're currently doing it. So as I went through that list of barriers, I am curious if one jumps out as the biggest opportunity. There might be one that I spoke to that makes your head nod vigorously. I say this because as I'm in the studio here recording with Gina, periodically I will look at her and she gives me the best nonverbal feedback because she'll smile or she'll shake her head emphatically like, yes, I'm navigating that, or yes, that makes sense. So I hope you have some of those moments when I speak and that you hear something and you think that might be it for me, or that might be it for the problem that we're trying to solve. So consider what the biggest opportunity might be for yourself or your teams. And, there are unique situations in life. There are also themes, right? Some people do experience themes, or groups experience themes. Like, I remember working with an organization that was like 70% female, and everybody was having a baby all at once. And so when we were thinking through ways to engage with the culture and the group of people, we were thinking through the needs of that population just because it happened to be a very large population. Now, we know we want variety. We want to serve a variety of populations, but there might be some themes that come up. Especially in the workplace, organizations will push out satisfaction surveys or culture surveys. And so there might be something kind of smacking you in the face about, ooh, people are wrestling with this. And I'm just going to pick one, like time, right? People are wrestling with time. There's only 24 hours in the day. So if people are at capacity, scarce on time, how do we create more time in the day? Right? We can look at some of these themes and try to problem solve for the benefit of the group. It is difficult, if not impossible, to be all things to all people, but we might also discover through this process of reflection that clearly something needs addressed. Avoiding it doesn't get the job done, so sometimes it involves having uncomfortable conversations and a willingness to try something different. Now, shifting to the workplace, if waves of people are disengaged and not showing up to activities, opportunities, or I should say, maybe they're going through the motions and they are physically present, but mentally, emotionally checked out, right? Consider what needs to happen, right? Trust that investing the time and energy and resources of the organization will always be a good idea. People are one of the most important variables in a workplace. And in my opinion, it is never a bad idea to invest in them. It's my vision that everybody have an employer and a workplace where they love going to work, they show up, they feel appreciated, they feel a part of something special, they are happy to be there, and they want to stay. So investing in these individuals is never a bad idea. I can't believe that we're going to regress by doing so. It can be a big decision on what that looks like, obviously, but it is always a good idea, especially when employers are looking to retain people, not replace people. And as indicated last episode, a focus on supporting people, meaning your employees, supporting their minds, their bodies, their spirits, a healthy environment, a sense of community. This will create many, many paths to well-being. This will create a culture that is healthy and happy, and people benefit from having options. So whether we are talking about a wellness program, which is obviously my lane, my scope of practice, my passion, or whether we are just talking about other programs in the workplace or other opportunities in life, know that people love options. It gives them ways to engage, right? Not just one way, but many choices or options. And options allow for self-direction, or autonomy is the fancier word for that. Autonomy is tied to motivation. People feel empowered. When it is your own life, I mean, come on, it makes sense. You want to choose. You want to choose what you eat for lunch, which training you want to go to, which project you take the lead on. Choice is empowering and gives people a safe space, and also allows them to really lean into strengths, interests, skills, so on and so forth. So options, options, options. Now I want to shift a little bit to this idea of safety, and this is going to tee us up for next episode as well. When you or people you work with are feeling checked out, consider if the culture, if the workday, if the meeting, if the group feels like a safe one to engage with. Safety and security are essential human needs. The moment someone feels unsafe, the moment someone feels uncertain, the moment someone feels scared or judged, they will check out. And if someone feels unsafe to express themselves, to express freely, to offer new ideas, to be vulnerable, to misunderstand, right? You need to feel safe asking a question, and you need to feel safe saying, I don't understand, I don't get it. If this is all unsafe, then that person will potentially shut down physically, mentally, emotionally. You might see it in their physical presence, in their face, in their eyes, in their eye contact or lack thereof. You might see it in their body language with arms folded across the chest. You might see it by someone physically leaving the space that you're in together. Gosh, this happens in relationships all the time, right? Somebody feels not okay with the situation and they will take flight, say, I need a minute, I'm out of here, and or just shut down entirely. And that is never what we're going for. We want to create a safe space for people to share whatever it is they're navigating, to voice their opinions, to voice their concerns, to be appropriately vulnerable, to birth an idea or creativity or innovation out into the world without fear of judgment or ridicule. And just to be like your quirky self is important, right? No one wants to go into a group experience and feel like they have to show up differently or a certain way. So with that really ties to the idea of creating psychological safety for others. incredibly important and powerful in the workplace and outside of the workplace. And we are going to be exploring that topic specifically in our next episode. And I am thrilled to be joined by Laura Ewer, who is our mental health specialist in LASW. She is really going to be a valuable resource to all of our listeners about what psychological safety or mental health safety looks like and how do we really create amazing culture and communities by encouraging a sense of safety and security. So she will be here with me next episode. She is super fun. And even when having difficult conversations about mental emotional health, she is able to be candid, direct, and hopeful and positive and keep it light. So I am thrilled to have her with me exploring this topic of psychological safety. So ultimately, I very much hope that some of today's message inspires you to consider potential barriers and how to overcome them. By overcoming them, how engagement with life and work will flourish. And this is Optimizing Engagement. I hope something in here spoke to you today. And as always, I welcome your feedback and am so grateful, gracious, and appreciative of your support. Thank you for creating a space for me to show up and attempt to be my authentic self as well. I enjoy being here, and I will see you next month.